Let the interview begin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the For Love and Nerds podcast. I'm here with Brian Kurlander. Hi, Brian. Thanks for being here.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So, obviously, you're an actor and you're in the acting industry. So, what attracted you to a career of it?
I was an athlete
Oh,
growing up and in college, and one night after a practice, a bunch of us in the locker room were horsing around, and somebody said there was an improv group on campus that was auditioning. So as a lark, we all decided to go down and crash the auditions, and I ended up getting cast in this inaugural improv group that was around for 30 years after I was part of its inaugural troupe. So that was what got me into it, and then later on that same year, I happened to be standing on top of a table singing, which was my want to do at certain parties, and somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to do a musical?" And I said, "Sure," and the rest is history.
wow, that's awesome. So, obviously, you said you're an athlete. Is that American football you did, or football, as you would say?
Well, no, I competed in wrestling.
Oh, cool, nice. Wow,
So I was a high school and collegiate wrestler, and then I represented the U.S. in the
wow,
Espoir World Championships.
wow, that's amazing. So, when you went into the acting industry, or as you said, theatre and the improv things, did you give wrestling up altogether?
Yeah, I retired. Right as I retired from wrestling, I just dove headlong into acting and writing and theater and that kind of stuff.
Nice, that's cool. And obviously, you were involved with a little show called Cobra Kai several years later.
Yeah.
So, what was it like being part of that show?
It was great. I got to work with Billy Zabka. He was just, what a joy, what a pro. We had a great time. It was a really funny scene to work on. And yeah, it was a great day, really welcoming set. And it was in year one when it was still on
Yeah,
YouTube. So, it was kind of neat because they were still trying to figure it out and what it was going to be. And by the time it got to Netflix, when it got to Netflix, it
yeah,
just blew up into this phenomena that it is now.
yeah. Well, it found a new audience, didn't it? That obviously weren't going to YouTube to watch Cobra Kai. So,
Right.
obviously, I know you're not a main character in the show, but was there a sense of on the set where they didn't think it was going to be successful, or they were just taking it day by day, or what?
No, the feeling was that it was, they're taking it like any show. You take it day by day, you do your best work day in and day
Yeah,
out, and then, hopefully the suits behind the scene know what
of
they're
course.
doing. And
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned Zabka. Did you grow up watching the Karate Kids?
oh, for sure, for sure. That's why it's so great to work on a show that you're actually a fan of. I
Of
mean,
course.
I've been able to do that a few times, and so working with Robin Wright, for instance, on House of Cards,
Yeah.
that was a pinch me moment because that's like date night for my wife and I. We would sit up and watch House of Cards and be all into it, and then the next thing I know, I'm on the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Wow, that's crazy. And so what moments have stood out to you the best throughout your career? Obviously, you mentioned obviously working with Zabka, working with Rob. What else stood out to you in general?
Well, I just shot a movie with Morgan Freeman, and
Wow.
when you get to work with a living legend, that is, that's a bucket list right there.
Yeah.
I've got some friends who worked with Robert De Niro, and they came back, they were just starstruck. But I just yeah, agog getting to work with someone like Morgan, and it was Cole Hauser as well, who's you know going great guns right now on Yellowstone. He's got a great following, and that show's got a
Yeah.
great following. So it was great movie to be on. Worked with a an American football star as well, Vernon Davis, who had won a Super Bowl, was an All Pro, and he's now acting and
Wow,
just
nice.
killing it. So I got to work with great people on this movie. It's coming out, I think, this summer, called Muti,
Okay.
um,
Nice.
and so that was pretty cool, And we shot half of it in Jackson, Mississippi, and then Vernon and I were the two actors that American actors that got to shoot the rest of the movie in Rome.
Wow. Very cool.
Very cool. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very cool.
So obviously you mentioned Morgan Freeman. Do you get starstruck by these guys, or are you used to meeting these sort of people now?
As a little kid, I kind of grew up meeting interesting people because of my father's line of work,
Yeah.
and then my wife's line of work, meeting interesting people, and then and so meeting them, you got to let yourself be a fan.
Of course.
So it's important, being a fan. I don't think we ever stop being fans, but when they yell action, you're just doing your work, and everybody's just doing their work, and you're just being as professional as you can and as prepared as you can to knock it out. And I got to do a very cool scene. I don't want to, no spoilers, but a
Of
very
course.
cool scene with Morgan, and a couple of really fun scenes with Cole.
Nice. And I'll be sure to check it out, obviously, once it drops, obviously.
Please, yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely.
just circling back to Cobra Kai for a sec, how long were you actually on set for when doing your
I just
part?
went in. I literally went in for a day.
Okay.
PJ, I think, was a transient character that was Billy's ex-wife's date for the day. I think they
Yeah.
came back the next episode and kind of made reference to that, and kind of how she's jumping from one guy to the next, and in the early part of the show.
Yeah.
So but I'm hoping that the fans will revive PJ and want him to come back. Little known secret, he was this world champion wrestler. I think that dovetails nicely into Cobra Kai.
Yeah, exactly. You could just kick William Zaka's ass.
I'll do like a little duck under, a little belly to back.
But yeah, like you said, it's really cool. Your all the side characters in the story. How they just come up here and there. Like you guys add little bits to the storyline, which make it really cool for the fans to talk to you guys. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, well, it seems to be. Yeah, it's been the gift that keeps on giving. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And you said you're working on a film with Freeman. Are you working on anything else at the moment?
I got another movie come out that I starred in called Black Balsam. Starred opposite Josie Davis, who's a wonderful actress, and
Nice.
Emily Topper and Ryan Bauman. And we play a family that moves into this house in the mountains of North Carolina. And the guy that formerly lived in the house is none too happy that we're there. And so I end up playing a dad who's battling to save his family.
Oh, cool. Nice. And
Yeah.
is that meant to drop this year?
That's going to drop this year. As a matter of fact, I just did ADR for it on Saturday, and we finishing out the score for the movie and final touches on getting the
Awesome.
dialogue set and color corrected, and we should drop probably in the next month and a half, 2 months.
That's really cool. And is that going to go to streaming festivals or?
Yes, all the above.
Okay,
They're the good news is they've got a bunch of distribution offers already.
that's good.
Director has produced a bunch of films that have done really well in the last 2 years, certainly during COVID, and so we're just kind of sitting back and I guess they're fielding offers, but pretty much festivals and then go to some
Yeah,
streaming platform probably.
that's cool. And obviously, you've done a variety of projects and movies and TV shows. Which ones stand out best to you? I know obviously each role is different to the other, but which ones do you remember most fondly?
Well, the last one,
Okay,
I think Wednesday night here in the States. I don't know if it's in the UK, but there's a reboot of a TV series called The Wonder Years,
oh yeah,
and the reboot's amazing. And I just got to work on that and work with Dule Hill and Saquon, who's an
oh
Atlanta-based
nice.
actress who plays his wife on that. And so, yeah, it was that was a great set to be on because Fred Savage, he wasn't directing that episode, but he was on set, and I grew up watching him, so that was kind of cool.
Nice, very cool. And what are your arguably biggest accomplishments in your acting career? Because yeah,
Well, I don't know. Maybe as a writer,
okay,
um, wrote a play that was produced here where I'm based in Atlanta a few years ago, and one of the stars of it is now kind of pretty big deal. Her name is Danielle Deadweiler, and you
nice.
probably saw her if you watch Station 11.
Oh yeah,
Uh, she plays the author of the book, and she's
okay.
just amazing. And I've gotten to work with her in theater productions here in Atlanta over the decade or so that I've been here, and so when you're working, creating things like that with people that are so extraordinary, those are the highlights,
Yeah.
really.
No, I get that totally. And you obviously mentioned doing writing. Is that fairly new, or is it something you wanted to do a lot more, take it over from your acting, or do both?
I think if you see any person who's in the arts, and particularly in the performing arts, you can't relegate yourself to one small area of it.
Suppose.
Acting is like
Yeah.
one slice of the pie. I think creativity lends itself to all sorts of opportunities, and writing is part of that. Producing is a part of that. Directing is a part of that. Teaching is a part of that.
Yeah, I get that. And is there anything you're yet to touch upon that you want to get to do, like directing, producing?
I still love acting.
Okay.
I mean, I just get a big, it really inspires me to tell great stories. It's amazing when you get to work with, talented people who really know their craft and are professional and
Yeah.
come to work every day just ready and excited about what they get to do. So I'm still not over that part of the creative process.
No, I get that totally. And but do you think once you come out of acting, you'd love to take on directing?
Yeah, maybe. It's not something I've directed in the theater. I do a lot of coaching of people, and they often say, "Well, you should be a director. You're so good with actors." I have much more respect for directors. It's a bigger process,
Yeah, I
and my
get that.
friends
Yeah.
who do produce and direct, it's a it's a big deal. And if somebody wanted to give me that responsibility, I don't think I would shy away from it, but I would definitely take some time to think about it.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, growing up, there's obviously been a bunch of huge actors and whatnot. Who did you look up to when going into the acting industry, or did you just want to go off your own craft?
No, I was, I was an athlete, so I didn't come to it. I was always a big movie buff. Like I loved going to movies. I loved television. Um, so I was always attracted to the industry. But I went to see the Broadway production of a play called Les Liaisons Dangereuses,
Okay.
and Alan Rickman,
Hmm.
better known as Professor Snape,
Yes.
who is
Oh,
an extraordinary classical actor, was playing the lead role, and I just was I I just was mesmerized by his performance and the power that he commanded on stage. Couldn't take your eyes off of him, and I was like, I want to do that. Like that really, and that moment, it really inspired me.
yeah.
And
Uh,
that's when I made the decision. I got to try this. And just fate would have it that all these things kind of fell into place, and I started training. And I started out focusing on classical theater and
Oh,
Shakespeare.
cool.
Got a graduate degree in the classics, and so I've kind of built my foundation kind of on an Anglophiles version of an acting platform.
Yeah, that's cool. You say obviously you speak of theatre, obviously. Is it quite common for people to start in theatre before they go into the acting industry? Because a lot of people I've spoken to, they take the theatre route before they go into acting.
I think there's more opportunities,
Right.
certainly when you're younger, to get a shot on stage. I mean, I'm speaking this as someone from another generation. So there's so many opportunities in film and television now, especially here in Georgia.
Yeah.
If you're in New York or LA or Chicago, um, but uh, but the theater is a place to learn from other great actors and watch actors who really put the time in to learning their craft and watching others who don't and
Yeah.
seeing how all that plays out, and you learn some great important lessons. Now there's a big distinction between acting for the stage and acting for the camera, and I talk about that a lot with my students when I teach here in Atlanta at Oglethorpe University. So
So is that like a part-time job at the university?
I'm an adjunct professor there, so I teach every other semester basically this
Oh,
course.
nice. Awesome.
So it's part of the routine, doing a little bit of that, a little bit. But I always find that I end up feeling guilty that I learn more during the semester with my students than my students do. But I always walk away really feeling enriched by the experience.
Yeah, totally. And obviously, we've spoke about obviously you did a bit of acting, writing, obviously teaching. You just said, is there anything completely out of the arts that you're wanting to pursue one day that you're yet to do?
Well, I got out of the business for a solid decade when my kids were born and little.
Oh wow.
Um,
Okay.
I was the film commissioner for the state of Alabama My wife at the time was the press secretary to the then governor. So I got a taste of kind of what it would be like not working in the arts, because as soon as I left my undergraduate university, I went straight into acting and was doing theater and film and television.
Mm.
And and then I went to graduate school and was working all the time. And there came a point where I got worried that acting was the only thing that I knew how to do.
Right.
And I wasn't really interested in teaching at the time. I was pretty young and I was newly married, and we were straight out of the gate having kids. So I had an opportunity to take on this job as film commissioner for the state of Alabama, and I jumped at it because I was nervous that I didn't have other skills.
Yeah.
And it was a phenomenal learning experience. I ended up after that running a PR firm, and then working with this, high-end boutique brand and design firm. So I learned a lot about marketing. I learned a lot about writing. I learned a lot about publicity. And what's been wonderful is taking those experiences and lending them to my, work as a teacher or as an actor or as an arts advocate. I've sat on the board of a number of nonprofits, theater being one of them, and I was the chairman of the board of this theater. So helping them, deal with some of the issues that surround small theaters in the United States. It was, those experiences really make a difference and helped me to be more productive in so many other areas.
Nice. That's awesome to hear. It's really cool that you're able to do so many different things. And obviously you came back to the acting industry, like you said. So that was really cool how you came full circle in the end. And
Yeah, I wasn't supposed to. I had my own company at the time. It was a branding and messaging company, and my wife, we'd moved to Atlanta from Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
And my job was to get everybody situated. I was working with my clients from home, so that was easy. And I was getting my kids situated in their schools with new friends and new club activities and all sorts of things. So just getting them to and from, and just getting everybody rooted, but also getting the house unpacked, because we were just piled to the floor to ceiling with boxes. And I opened up a box and I came across all of my Shakespeare manuscripts and whatnot. And I started going through them, and I picked up the phone and I called the now defunct Georgia Shakespeare Festival and asked them if they held open auditions. And it just so happened they were auditioning that day.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, can I come in tomorrow? Because I hadn't done a professional Shakespeare job in 10 years, and ended up going in the next day, auditioning, getting cast for their season, and having to spring that on my wife that I was going back to acting when that wasn't part of the plan.
Wow.
Yeah, it worked out.
So that's what started your reboot of a career, basically.
Yeah, it really, and it immediately, because it was right at the beginning in 09 and 10 when the industry in Georgia just started going gangbusters. They had a tax credit incentive that was really unique in the United States and even around the world. And before you know it, Georgia was the leading producer of content in the world.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of opportunity. So all of a sudden, not only was I doing just a ton of professional theater, but and it was very good theater with really talented people. But I was also doing a lot of film and television. So that it just was fortuitous timing.
That's awesome. And obviously, I've asked about certain roles you've done. What role stands out to you as probably the hardest role that was hard for you to get into, that required the most effort?
The Pitman Painters.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're familiar. The Pitman Painters were these. It's a true story about some miners in Ashington, outside of Newcastle, who, as part of the National Labor Association, were able to take these classes, and they were paid for by the government. And so they wanted to understand what posh people thought, art was. Like, when they look at a painting, what do these because art was only for the posh, it wasn't
Yeah.
for working class people. And so they brought in this professor, and he couldn't explain to them what it meant to appreciate art. So he had them start painting. And their painting was, it was started off very rudimentary, but it showed a slice of life that hadn't really been represented in the English art movement, and they became sensations.
Wow.
And so these painters, these coal miners, were starting to be celebrated, and one of them became, very well known in art circles. And so doing that show was challenging because I had to try and do the Geordie dialect.
Can you still do it?
Well, if you're given directions, I say you go down round the roundabout and down the lane.
It's all right, isn't it? I'm not going to try.
All right. So, anyways, that was challenging. Plus, you're using just different colloquialisms and slangs, that you just need to get, just as part of your normal speaking. To this day, when my wife asks me a question and I don't know the answer, I say, I don't know.
It's the best way to be. So how did you get involved? Was it filmed in England or was it filmed in America?
No, this is a play. This is a play
Oh.
that was done initially in New York City.
Oh, wow.
And then the rights became available to theaters around the country. And this theater that I've spent a lot of time working at here in Atlanta, and Equity Theater,
Yeah,
was performing it, and I got to go in and audition and play this just great role, and with a just stellar cast. And so yeah, that was very challenging.
I gathered. Obviously, it's always hard to put the British accent on, and especially the Geordie accent as well, which is the most awkward to do.
In Muti, I play a Brit the whole movie, so that was. And when we shot in Mississippi, we didn't have a dialect coach, so I was just staying in dialect, feeling like a doofus, as I'm talking to Morgan Freeman in a British dialect, because I got to stay in the pocket. And but fortunately, when we got to Rome, there was a dialect coach, so I didn't have to walk around talking in dialect while I was on set.
Oh well, I'm looking for. So that's the new film that's coming out.
Yeah, that's a new one. That I've got 3 films that are coming out in 2022, so it's a good year.
Nice, busy. Yeah, I look forward to checking them all out at some point. Obviously, when they drop, obviously.
Yeah, thanks.
I just want to finish on one final question, and that's what else is in store for you, like in the next 5 years? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish?
More movies, man. I know it's cliche and kind of Pollyanna-ish, but what I learned over the course of our lockdown in the United States, and over the course of the several years that we've been dealing with COVID, is that people retreat to stories.
Yes.
People retreat to seeing something that either lifts them up or transports them. And I said to a friend of mine the other day, to my students actually, I said, make no mistake, we're essential workers.
Yeah.
The work that people in the arts do is important to the well-being of the audiences that we reach. And so as long as I'm continuing to be able to do that, I'll be a happy man.
No, I totally agree. I think near enough every day during lockdown, I'd watch something, whether it be TV or a film or whatever, you guys and everyone who I watched on TV kept us alive during that period, kept us alive, kept us sane. So, we'll always be grateful for the people like yourself and everyone else I've spoken to over this time period. So
thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Brian, again. And I look forward to your movies, as I said. And it's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, likewise. Cheers.
You're very welcome. Enjoy the rest of your day and take care. And I'm sure we'll catch you up in the future, maybe,
Yeah, be great. Anytime.
Yeah. All the best. Bye.
Yeah.